Well, let me ask you a question. Are you thinking about getting married? I found this article on questions to ask when preparing for marriage. And I have to say before I start, I've been married going on 64 years with the same woman. Yes, that's rare in this day and age. But marriage, when you take the vow, it's supposed to be forever, till death do you part. Well, let's take a look at some of the questions that people should ask each other before they get married. So, this article was written by John Piper, and it was back in '09, in August, I believe it was. In each of these sections, one item could be added that I have not listed, namely, how do you handle and live with differences? We all think differently in many ways. And how do you describe what can remain differed without jeopardizing the relationship? So as you deal with each one of these subheadings, included that is in the discussion. Well, let's look at theology first of all. We're talking about our beliefs in God. What do you believe about everything? Perhaps read through the Desiring God affirmation of faith to see what each believes about various biblical doctrines. In other words, it's very important that you at least be on the same page as far as your spirituality goes. Now, discover how you form your views and what is the reasoning, believing process. How do you handle the Bible? So, from a theological standpoint, these are all questions that each of you should ask one another. And now, looking at worship and your devotions, how important is corporate worship? Gathering with other like believers to worship the Lord, other participations in the church life. In other words, how do you function within the body of Christ if you're truly a Christian? And how important is it to be part of a small accountability support group? You think about being accountable to one another, but also outside of your marriage, you have to be accountable to others. What is the importance of music in life and worship? You might have different likes in music, but music is very important in our lives. And what are your daily personal devotional practices? In your prayer life, your reading, your meditation, your memorization. Are you faithful in these? And do you both agree on it? What would our family devotional look like? Who would lead out in this? And the Bible is pretty specific on this. The man, the husband, is to take the leadership, and do you agree on that? Are we doing this now in our appropriated way, praying together about our lives and future, reading the Bible together? Are you doing that right now as a couple? You should be. Okay, let's look at the heading of husband and wife. What is the meaning of headship and submission in the Bible and in our marriage? These are things that you have to deal with. Deal with them before your marriage. What are expectations about situations when one of us might be alone with someone of the opposite sex? Something to think about, because this is going to happen. And we should try to avoid it, but sometimes it'll happen. How are tasks shared in the home, like cleaning, cooking, washing dishes, yard work, car upkeep, repair, shopping for food and household stuff. Well, I'm just going to share a little bit on this point is the fact that my wife and myself, when I was in the workforce, she did most of the housework, in fact, just about all of it. And I was the breadwinner, and we both had our place. But on times I would help her once in a while. But since I retired, we kind of try to share this load. She'll wash the dishes and I'll put them away, or vice versa. And a lot of times I'll just wash the dishes and sometimes just put them away. She seems to do the laundry, and we both make beds together. We help one another. It's a lot easier when you have one person on one side of the bed and one on the other. So these are just some things to think about. As you get older, you have a tendency more to help one another. Okay, what are the expectations of togetherness? You spend time with your wife. I try to have our little talks in the morning when we're both up having our coffee. It's a good idea. What is the ideal non-special evening? There's evenings that we just sometimes want to be alone. Like we are individuals, and my wife and me spend time together because we're a couple, but we also have to give each other a little space. And this is important also. And how do you understand who intimates or initializes a sex and how often? Well, when you get older, you kind of get over this, but that's important too. Talk about it before your marriage. Who does the checkbook, or are there two? Well, in my case, we only have one checkbook. One of us pays the bills, and that happens to be me. But my wife gets a Social Security check, and I put it in a special savings for her so she can buy things for herself and others. And she likes to shop, and as she got older now, she doesn't shop as much, but she does shop online with the technology we have, something to think about. Okay, now we're going to look at children. Well, we had 6 children, and we didn't really plan it. It just happened. We were married 2 years, didn't have any children, and then married the 3rd year, we had 3 children. That's because she had twins. Well, the question is, how should we have children? If so, when, why, and why? How many? How far apart? Would we consider adoption? What are the standards of behavior? What is the appropriate way to discipline? How many strikes before, or whatever, Well, what are the expectations of time spent with them and when they go to bed? And what signs of affection will you show them? What about school? Homeschool, Christian school, public school? Well, I wasn't a Christian when we got married, and we had 6 children, but we did things with the children. We all liked to camp, so we'd all go camping. We'd go fishing. We would spend time together. Back then they had drive-in movies, so we'd pack all the kids in the car, pop up a big bag of popcorn. My wife would make Kool-Aid, and we'd head out for the drive-in. We'd go to these all-night drive-ins. We spent time together with the kids as they grew up. That's something important, so if you decide to have kids, you better figure out spending time with them. Okay, the lifestyle. Uh, should we own a home or not? Why? What kind of neighborhood and why? How many cars, new, used? You know, in our life, a lot of these questions were automatically asked. We bought a house when we could afford it. We rented before that. And as far as the neighborhood, we started off in the big city, moved down south, moved back north, and then we ended up moving to a small town, and we love it. So that was our way of choosing. We just kind of went with the flow. And as far as how many cars, my wife never drove, so we only had one car. And I always bought used cars, never bought new. They were too expensive and they would lose value too quick. As far as the money in general, how much to the church? Well, my wife just leaves it up to me, and I give what I feel is appropriate for our financial situation. And you have to agree on this. And how do you make money decisions? Well, usually if we're going to make a major buy or something that's a little more expensive, take, for example, a computer or something like that, we talk about it. I inform my wife before making any purchases, and we've decided to do things with our money, and not so much as investing, but how, uh, like when I retired, I had to take a little less pension in order to make sure that my wife would continue collecting my pension if I was to go be with the Lord. So these are all decisions that have to be made. Now, when will you buy clothes, department store, thrift stores? That's in my wife's ballpark. She's a shopper and she's a good shopper, and she does buy from thrift stores. Uh, she watches for sales even online. Uh, so that's something that we have decided on, and you have to decide that together. Okay, for entertainment, how much money should be spent on entertainment? Well, yeah, that's in your ballpark. You talk about it. How often should we eat out? Well, my wife likes Chinese, and we do a takeout, and we both like it, so we agree on it. And we try to do it once every week to 2 weeks. We don't go overboard, but it helps her because then she don't have to cook a meal. And sometimes I will just make a pizza for us or whatever, so she don't have to cook. And these are decisions that you have to make. And what kind of vacations are appropriated and helpful for us? Well, our vacation days are over, but we're retired, but we still make one trip to the lake uh, cottage that my daughter and son-in-law rent. We do this once a year. They rent a house, or I mean, I'm sorry, a pontoon boat, because I got trouble getting in and out of a regular boat. And we do this once a year, so that's what we do. And then how many toys, snowmobiles, boats, cabins, we buy things that we use that we don't need. Like when we were younger, we had a pop-up camper because the kids like to camp. I've had a few boats, sold everything now. I don't have any of the toys anymore. And should we have a television? Well, we got more than one television. We do watch the news, and we both agree on it. Sometimes we discuss what we watch and what's happening in the world, but we are not to be too occupied with things in this world, but only with things in the next world. And what are the, criteria for movies and theaters. We're not theater goers, but we do watch a movie once in a while online. We don't have the kids anymore, but you have to sure police your own children with all the trash that's out there. Now we come to conflicts. What makes you argue? Well, you'll find it out as you go through life. It's not a smooth road. You're going to find out you're going to argue a lot. And how do you handle your frustrations or anger? Well, my father used to tell me that to count to 10. And that's kind of a good thing. It gives you time to think, count slow, and don't let your anger or frustration, don't take it out on your spouse. She or he is the love of your life, and you don't want to hurt them. Well, who should bring up the issue that is bothersome? Well, there are things that will irritate us, and we have to be honest with one another, but at the same time do it in love. What if we disagree both about what should be done or whether it is serious? Well, sometimes you come to a crossroad in your life and one of you have to make a decision. And in God's providence, it's the head of the house, which is the man. Sometimes my wife is right, and I have to listen to her and bow to her will, because you can be wrong at times. Don't push your authority too hard, because that'll cause problems. What if we disagree both about what should be done or whether it is serious? And that's kind of the thought that I was thinking about. Will we go to bed angry at each other? I make it a point, even if I'm angry with my wife or we disagree, I give her a goodnight kiss every night. And that seems to calm a lot of the storm. Well, what is our view of getting help from friends or counselors? Well, we tried to work things out, and I have to say that in all our troubles that we had in our marriage for 64 years, we never had to get a counselor or get help. We managed to work things out together, which was good. We did separate once, and it was only for a period of time, cooling off period. Neither one of us ever thought about a divorce. Well, one thing is I had 6 children. I wouldn't have been able to afford the child support. Well, work. Who is the main breadwinner? And we've always agreed that I was, though my wife worked at times, especially when the kids were out of the house. And in fact, I even bought the house that we're living in because it's right across the street from where she worked, because she didn't drive. This was convenient, and it was a good idea, I think. And it helped with the finances for a while, but then as she got older, I just asked her that maybe she should stop working, but she already made up her mind that she was going to. Well, that's the thing about should the wife be out of the house. Well, when you have children, that's a whole different situation. With kids at home, I believe the place is for the mother and the wife is to rear the children. We read that so many times in the Bible, the influence that mothers and grandmothers had on their children. And we never used daycare, but that's an issue that if you decide that both are going to work, and the kids are young, you have to take care. Well, what determines where we will be located? Job, whose job, church, family? Well, we never dealt with this because both of us were older when we became Christians, and I believe that the church is something to take into consideration, and I'm talking about the fellowship with other believers. And our church family is more close to us than our regular family. Then thinking about friends, it is good to do things with friends, but without spouse. I did, when we were first married, I went fishing a lot with fishing buddies, guys I worked with, and my wife wasn't included. But I think that was wrong, and we are to do things together as a family. Once in a while, it's okay to do something with a friend. My wife goes out yet once a month or once every couple months with a friend, and they go out and they do lunch together. Usually go to the Chinese, and they have an all-you-can-eat buffet. So they go there together, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there are things that I do sometimes. I have meetings that I go to, and so we do things separately too, but we are in agreement of it. Now, health and sickness. Do you have or have you had any sicknesses or physical problems that could affect your relationship? You know, allergies, cancer, eating disorders, all these different things that come up. Well, my wife and me never thought about these things. We married one another for better or for worse. But I kidded her a couple of times because I would sneeze a lot, and I told her I was allergic to her. But it was only joking. Well, do you believe in divine healing? And how would you pray relating to medical attentions? Oh, I prayed for my wife many times, and as she got older, there's more problems. Our bodies wear out. We have more aches and pains. We do pray for one another. I believe that God can heal and will heal if need be. But at the same time, he has given us all these things in the world to help us, medicines, and also physicians who have been trained in the things that happen to our bodies. And we pray but rely on all these things as well. And how do you think about exercise and healthy eating? Well, I guess I lax in this area. I usually I'm not overweight to any great extent, and neither is my wife, but we try to watch what we eat. We try to stay healthy. Our bodies belong to God, and we are to take care of them. And talk about this. Do you agree on this? And do you have any habits that would affect health, like smoking, drinking? If you're a Christian, you shouldn't be doing either one of these. I did smoke, I did drink, so did my wife before we were Christians, but we both gave that up. Now, smoking was hard for me to give up, and drinking was hard for my wife to give up, but we both did it with the help of the Lord. So these are all things that you should be discussing before you get married. Now, this is probably the best counseling that I could give from this article, and there are others in the world that know a lot more than I do. by giving advice, but I do know this. I have a lot of years of experience as being a married man and loving my wife as Christ loves the church. And that's how we are to do this. And wives, you are to be submissive to your husband. This is all taught in the Bible. It's not chauvinist or anything like that. It's just a positional thing. Because He's not a respecter of persons, neither male or female or slave or free or rich or poor. It doesn't make any difference. God treats us all the same. But positionally, we do have different roles we are to play in this life. Something to think about. I hope this helps you. And I'm going to end our recording here. Bye for now.